Whether it's the bombastic Bagman insulting an increasingly annoyed Venom, a raging Rhino charging a web-slinging Spider-Man, or a towering Kingpin trying to crush the thorn in his side, all of these characters can use super strength to pummel their opponents. Hi, I'm the Tabletop Teacher, and in this video we're going to take a look at the 2023 rules update for super strength and the new rules for terrain markers, featuring some of my favorite figures from the Marvel Heroclix Spider-Man Beyond Amazing set. Super Strength is identified by a dark green background on the attack slot of the dial. Super Strength is getting a big boost with the 2023 rules update. In essence, a character with Super Strength can make attacks using terrain markers and knock back hit opposing characters during close attacks. Keep in mind that knockback damage is back in the game. But in order to explore Super Strength properly, we have to talk about terrain markers first. These are terrain markers that provide one level of elevation. These are terrain markers that provide hindering terrain. These are terrain markers that act as blocking terrain. This is also a terrain marker, but its round edge lets you know that it's an object. Objects are a subset of terrain markers that have no effect on the terrain of the square they're in. You need Super Strength to pick up terrain markers, but any character can pick up objects. Note that light and heavy objects are now retired. During game setup, you can place up to 3 terrain markers on the map. The size and type of terrain markers have some serious strategic weight. You can create a wall if you need one, you can give yourself stealth opportunities where there were none, you can create a vantage point or a combination of all that. And if you have a character with Super Strength on your force, these can all be used to hit opposing characters with, or you can simply get rid of them to mess with your opponent's strategy. This is what all of these numbers here are for. This lets you know how far a super strong character can throw this terrain marker in what's called a ranged terrain action, and this tells you how much damage the terrain will deal when thrown. This tells you the giant reach the terrain marker grants you when using it in a close terrain action, while this is the damage modifier you get with that close terrain action. Over here is the damage required to destroy the terrain marker in a close or range destroy action. When terrain is destroyed this way, you flip it to its debris side, but when it's used in an attack, that debris is not generated. The terrain marker is just out of the game. As I mentioned a moment ago, terrain markers are placed during game setup. They can be placed anywhere they'll fit, except inside starting areas, on top of another terrain marker, over blocking terrain, over special terrain, usually represented by orange lines, or over transition squares. This is why you'll now see transition squares where there's no elevation change. This rule prevents players from blocking doors and the like. Green Goblin is keeping Spider-Man busy, outwitting his super senses. Rhino spots Spider-Man standing on the shipping container and seizes the opportunity. Rhino charges, picks up the container, which makes Spider-Man take 1 click of damage because of falling, and Rhino then succeeds a close terrain action on Spider-Man, using the container he just picked up for a total of 6 damage, his printed 4, plus 2 for using this terrain in a close terrain action. More than enough to knock out this uncommon version of Spider-Man in a single hit. So yes, a super strong character can pick up a terrain marker right from under the feet of other characters. It can also pick up blocking terrain markers created by the barrier standard defense power. Super strong characters don't have to break through a barrier to reach opposing characters hiding behind it now. They just need to pick up a barrier marker to do so. Barrier markers, like other terrain markers and objects that don't have specific printed values, have the default terrain marker values. So, see the boost I was talking about? You get all of this with Super Strength. Knockback during close attacks, which could result in damage. You get to use terrain markers in attacks. You can change the landscape by picking up or dropping terrain markers in different spots. And barriers are not getting in your way. With all of this, Super Strength is now a standard power worthy of building a team around. So, here are a few choices you might consider. Bombastic Bagman. At 75 points, he has decent combat values, shape change, along with the Spider-Man team ability that's boosting his super senses that make him a very tough target to hit. But his stop clicks are what's fantastic. If super senses succeeds, you're good. But if it fails, you're dealing 1, 2, or 3 damage to the attacker, whatever the result of the die was. And if you've accumulated at least 4 of his rally dice, which is likely since his trait is good for all attack rolls, that damage is penetrating. This is not an attack, mind you, so it will go right through an opponent's stop clicks. If you want to give his damage value a little boost for close attacks, you could pair him with the B-dial version of Spider-Man from the starter set. Hypersonic speed with an incapacitate variant that makes hit targets earthbound neutralized can be very useful. A range of 6 with 3 targets is actually great in the new smaller maps. For only 50 points, you could play Vulture, who has traded super strength. Vulture has crazy mobility with his swoop special speed power that grants him sidestep, charge, and an additional use of sidestep after a charge. His rally die grants him a free action to move 6 squares and take another character along for the ride. Could be a friendly one for better positioning of Empower or something else, or an imposing one and place them on the rim of some elevation so that they'll fall after a super strong close attack that knocks them back. The super rare Spider-Man is a force to reckon with at 200 points. Great mobility with leap climb and the wall crawler trait. Be sure to have some elevated terrain markers to take advantage of that. You'll find some in the starter set and play at home kits. His hypersonic speed variant allows him to make 2 close attacks, and he has flurry as well, just in case. Probability control is more precious now than ever before, so that's good. Great combat values, 3 stop clicks that grant regeneration, super senses, and a full safeguard from outwit. Beyond amazing, some might say. The B-dial version of Spider-Gwen is really interesting. You can get characters that cost fewer points to add Perplex to your team, obviously, but for only 40 points, her Dimension Hop's special speed power, boosted super senses, and super strength make her much more than just a supporting character. After a free action to place her up to 4 squares away, she can pick up an adjacent terrain marker or put one down if she was already holding one. Whether it's to reorganize the landscape, drop a piece of terrain for another character to pick up and attack, or simply for her to make a super strong attack, she's quite a nice strategic piece for 40 points. One of my very favorite characters with super strength in this set has to be the prime rare Kingpin. My goodness, only 90 points for 10 clicks, 3 of those stop clicks, and on those stop clicks, he has an Imperious variant that can reduce penetrating damage, along with a regeneration variant that doesn't cut his healing result in 2, if the Kingpin doesn't have any action tokens. Remember, since this is a stop click, he still heals 1 less, but I'll take that possible 5 clicks of healing any day. He could also be played at 65 or 35 points. He'll start with Outwit in every case, as well as a special speed power that grants him Charge and Flurry. Remember that using terrain in an attack is a close action, so you can't Flurry and use terrain in an attack at the same time. If he picks up some terrain, you'll have to choose between a Flurry attack or using terrain, but those are interesting options depending on who's on the receiving end of the attack. You might want to keep the terrain for another attack later on. If you want to boost his 3 damage and a flurry attack, pairing him with Dr. Octopus is a great idea for several reasons. Doc Ock has a special damage power that grants him Empower, Leadership, and Perplex, all of which will be perfect with Kingpin. The Masters of Evil team ability will help lower opposing characters' defense value if positioned properly in close attacks. But on top of that, he has a trait that grants the Masters of Evil team ability to all friendly characters with the Sinister Syndicate team ability. This should help a lot with landing close attacks. His Arm bystanders serve many purposes. He can mastermind damage to them, they can protect other characters by just being in the way, acting as a sort of moving barrier, and they're also very competent attackers. Stepping out of Spider-Man Beyond Amazing for a second here, if you just want to make sure you have the option to use super strength when you need it, a 40 points Bane from Batman Teen-Up might just do the trick. Only 3 clicks, but his combat values along with Close Combat Expert and his rally trait will give you 1 Venom-powered shot at landing a very powerful close attack. If you assign him the Cloak of Levitation, and this is something you can do with any super strong character by the way, you can put him in charge of protecting range attackers. Bane sidesteps and picks up the scaffold. Grodd and Brain go ahead with their ranged mind control attacks. Once they're done, Bane simply moves and drops the terrain marker back in place. So that's pretty much what I had to say about the new Super Strength. It just turned into a must-have for me. How about you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. You can support this channel by getting your Heroclix from LaBoutiqueTabletop.com. Thanks for watching and have fun.